Wiltshire is a land of stone circles, ancient tracks, and quiet villages where history never fully sleeps. Tonight, we walk through manors, inns, and abbeys where the past still moves in the shadows. Avebury Manor. In the heart of the ancient stone circle of Avebury stands Avebury Manor, a house wrapped in layers of history, myth, and quiet sorrow. The landscape around it is older than recorded time, shaped by ritual and mystery. Yet the house itself carries hauntings that feel far more personal, as though certain spirits have never quite been able to leave. The most frequent apparition is the weeping man in the wide-brimmed hat. Some describe him as a cavalier, others as a nobleman whose sorrow clings to the very walls. Many believe him to be Sir John Stowell, a royalist ruined during the English Civil War. He has been seen walking slowly through the gardens, sometimes pausing beside the yew trees as though remembering something deeply painful. In the room now known as the Cavalier Room, visitors have reported the sound of quiet sobbing when no one else is present. In the library, a black-robed monk has been seen moving with solemn, measured steps. His clothing resembles that of the Benedictine order, said to have lived on the site long before the house was built. He never speaks and never turns his head. Those who encounter him describe feeling as though the air thickens with memory, like breathing the past itself. The Crimson Room holds its own strange activity. From time to time, the windows have been found thrown wide open, even on still days, with rose petals scattered across the floor. No source for the petals has ever been identified. Some claim the White Lady is responsible, a silent figure who descends the staircase and outdoors is known to approach men from behind, tapping their shoulder or catching their coat as if trying to stop them leaving. Even the old stables have their ghost, a phantom cat heard but rarely seen, brushing past the ankles of those who walk there. Avebury Manor is stunning, peaceful, and deeply atmospheric. Yet beneath its beauty lies something else, the sense that certain stories were never finished, and their tellers have simply remained. St. James Church. Just a short walk from the manor stands St. James Church, its tower rising quietly above the ancient village. The churchyard here is peaceful by day, with weathered headstones leaning gently into the grass and swallows circling the spire in summer. Yet when the light fades and the lanes grow still, the atmosphere changes. The past seems to stir, and the watchers of this place are said to wake. Many who pass through at dusk speak of a woman in pale clothing walking among the graves. She moves slowly, as though searching for a name she once knew. Her form is clear enough to draw attention, solid enough that a visitor might mistake her for a late mourner. But when approached, she turns. Witnesses describe her face as calm, sorrowful, and strangely distant. And then, without drama or sound, she simply fades into the air. No one knows her story. Some say she was a young woman who lost her love to the wars. Others insist she is a mother who returns to the resting place of her child. The church records are silent, and the earth keeps its secrets. There is another presence here, smaller and far more fleeting, a young boy in Victorian clothing. He has been seen near the boundary wall, often in the early evening, just as the first bats begin to fly. He does not appear distressed, but there is a kind of loneliness in the way he stands, hands by his sides, motionless as though waiting. Those who see him say he vanishes the moment they blink, as though he was only ever a memory. Inside the church itself, the silence can feel heavy. Some visitors describe the sensation of being watched from the pews, even when alone. The faint smell of old incense has been known to drift through the nave when there are no candles burning, and a soft rustling sound is sometimes heard near the chancel, like fabric moving through the still air. St. James Church remains a place of worship, reflection, and quiet beauty. Yet beneath the hymns and sunlight, something lingers. Here, love and grief appear not to have faded with time. They simply changed form and stayed. The wagon and horses. Along the old coaching route that cuts across the Wiltshire countryside stands the Wagon and Horses an inn that has watched centuries of travellers pass through. Though warm and welcoming today, its low ceilings, timber beams, and deep stone hearth hint at a far older story. And for many, that story has never quite ended. The most frequently seen spirit here is an elderly woman in a white smock, said to linger near the bar. Her appearance is usually brief, a flicker of movement at the edge of sight, a figure glimpsed, leaning against the wall before melting into the air. Some believe she was once the landlady, a caretaker in life who has simply continued her watch. More distinct, however, is the presence of a Victorian man, pipe smoke curling around him. He is often seen leaning casually beside the fireplace, with a dog resting faithfully at his feet. Witnesses describe the smell of tobacco, lingering long after the figure has vanished, as though he has only just stepped away. For many, his presence feels calm and familiar, a memory echoing through the pub's oldest rooms. Yet the inn also carries a story of injustice. A man in a tricorn hat and cloak has been spotted near the entrance, sometimes on misted nights where sound seems to fall flat against the road. He is believed to be Walter Leader, accused of the murder of a Royal Mail coachman, a crime many say he did not commit. His ghost does not linger indoors, but waits outside, pacing the path where the coach once stopped, as though caught in a moment he cannot escape. There are more dramatic events too. On winter nights, locals claim to have heard the rumble of wheels and the clatter of hooves, a ghostly coach and horses arriving at the inn. The vision is seen only for a heartbeat, lantern-light breath rising in cold air, and the outline of the carriage stopping before fading into nothing. Inside, lights switch on and off without cause. A sharp voice is sometimes heard calling out just one word. You, whether a warning, a greeting, or a memory, no one knows. The wagon and horses remains lively and full of warmth. But some of its past patrons, it seems, have chosen never to leave. Wiltshire Museum. In the market town of Devizes stands Wiltshire Museum, a quiet treasure house of ancient history. Inside are relics from Barrow's hill forts and stone circles displaying the long story of the county's landscape. Yet among these artifacts and carefully arranged displays, there are whispers of a presence that feels far more recent and far more personal. Former staff speak of an elderly woman in a straw hat, seen not among the exhibits, but walking the lower floors, as though still tending to her work. Many believe she is Maud Cunnington, a pioneering archaeologist whose dedication shaped much of what the museum holds. She was the first woman to be elected chairman of the Wiltshire Archaeology and Natural History Society, and her influence remains in every room. Witnesses describe her presence as subtle at first, the faint sound of footsteps. When the building is otherwise empty, a gentle shift in the air, the unmistakable sense of someone entering the room behind them. Then occasionally, she appears a slim figure in Edwardian dress, straw hat, shading her face, moving with intent. She does not acknowledge the living. She is always focused, always purposeful, as though she still has work to finish. The focus of the haunting seems to be the old writing desk used to record excavation notes. Staff have reported the chair being moved, overnight tools shifted, and papers arranged differently from how they were left. Not in chaos, but with care. as though someone has been working there in silence. Some describe an atmosphere in one room, a kind of stillness that falls when you cross the threshold. Conversations falter. Visitors look behind them. A museum guide once said softly that it felt like walking suddenly into someone else's thoughts. There are no dramatic apparitions here, no outcries, no sudden shocks. Instead, the haunting of Wiltshire Museum feels like a life that refused to fade. A mind too dedicated to its purpose simply continued. The museum remains open, bright, and welcoming. Yet in the quiet hours when the doors are locked and the lights dim, it is said that Maud walks again, documenting, observing, remembering. Still, the guardian of the past, she devoted her life to preserve. The White Bear. In the center of Devizes stands the White Bear, a public house with a warm, fire-polished wood and the gentle hum of conversation. Yet behind its familiar welcome lies a history layered with uneasy moments and quiet disturbances, the kind that suggest the building keeps company not entirely of this world. One of the earliest accounts comes from a housekeeper who discovered a Bible lying open on the floor of an upstairs room. Thinking someone had simply left it out, she returned it to the shelf. But when she stepped out and back again, only moments later, the Bible was back on the floor, open to the same page. The room was still, the air was cold, and she was quite alone. There have been whispers of a man's voice calling the landlady by name. Calm, steady, and unmistakably close, even when the pub was empty. A second witness heard it too. No one could find its source. Items move without explanation. Tools left overnight during refurbishment projects are found neatly gathered in different rooms by morning. Shadows have been seen behind the bar, passing across the mirrored glass, as though someone has walked by, yet there is no one there to cast them. Many believe the haunting follows a path beginning near the old men's entrance, passing through the office that once served as the dining room and disappearing into a corridor leading toward the cellars. Those who stand in the office describe a sudden drop in temperature, as though something moves through the room without slowing intent on a destination unseen. Some staff speak of a presence that is not unkind, simply determined. Perhaps a former landlord making his rounds, checking the rooms, ensuring the place he once tended remains in order. Others feel something more sorrowful, a sense of unfinished conversation, of words left unsaid. The upstairs rooms are quiet now, but those who stay alone in the building overnight say the silence never feels empty. It feels watched, not threatening, but expectant. The White Bear remains a lively inn, but the past does not rest here. It walks, just as it always has. Urchfont Manor House. On the edge of the Wiltshire countryside sits Urchfont Manor House, a building of soft stone, sweeping lawns and quiet corridors where time seems to hold its breath. For many years it served as a place of learning and retreat, yet beneath its warmth and civility lies a story shaped by grief and violence, one that has never quite found peace. The most often spoken presence here is the Lady in Black. She is believed to be Mrs. Rivers Pollock, once mistress of the house. Her husband, troubled by heavy losses and deepening despair during the years of war, reached a breaking point. In a moment of torment, he took her life and then his own. The tragedy left the house stained with a sorrow that lingers still. Her apparition is seen most often on the stairs and in the hallways, moving slowly, her head slightly bowed, as though carrying the weight of memory. Witnesses describe a chilling stillness that precedes her appearance, followed by the unmistakable sound of fabric sweeping across the floor. She does not acknowledge those who see her. She simply walks the places she once knew, endlessly retracing her final hours. In the kitchen, there are reports of a shadow figure that appears only in the corner of one's vision. It never remains when looked at directly. Guests describe the sensation of being watched not threateningly, but with a kind of restless presence, as though someone stands just behind them, waiting to be recognized. One guest, staying in a room overlooking the grounds, spoke of their duvet being pulled away during the night. At first, gently, then, with firm, unmistakable purpose. When they sat upright, the room was empty, yet the sense of being observed did not fade. In the coach house door, handles rattle softly in the small hours, as if someone is trying each door in turn. And in the cottage by the grounds, footsteps have been heard moving across the ceiling, though no one occupies the rooms above. Urchfont Manor House remains beautiful, calm and gracious. Yet its stillness is not empty. It is filled with memory and with a sorrow that has chosen to remain. Westwood Manor, tucked among the quiet lanes near Bradford-on-Avon, stands Westwood Manor, a place of carved stone, dark wood, and rooms that seem to hold more silence than sound. It is the kind of house where footsteps echo just a little too long, where old portraits seem to follow the eye, and where the past feels unusually close. The most unsettling presence here is the headless man. His story, according to local tradition, begins with a curse. Long ago, the magistrate who lived in the manor ordered the hanging of a poacher. The poacher's wife, a woman said to possess knowledge of charms and old country magic, pronounced a curse on the house and all who lived within it. Over the years that followed, several tragedies befell the residents, and one of those deaths, it is said, became the ghost now seen on the manor's staircase. He appears as a tall figure in dark plain clothing, moving slowly up the old steps. Witnesses report hearing his footsteps first measured and heavy, as though climbing with great effort. Only when he reaches the top of the stairs does his form become clear, a man without a head, moving with deliberate, unfinished purpose. He fades before he reaches the landing, leaving an eerie stillness behind. Another presence is felt in the corner bedroom, where guests have spoken of a woman's faint footsteps pacing from the window to the bed. Some have woken in the small hours to the sensation of someone sitting on the mattress, though the room is empty. Her identity remains unknown, though the manor's history holds more than enough sorrow to account for her. The music room also carries its own mystery. On one occasion, a worker entered the room and caught the scent of tobacco smoke, rich and unmistakably fresh. Above a carved chair, a small wisp of smoke appeared to hang in the air. When he stepped closer, it vanished, leaving only silence where the scent had been moments before. Westwood Manor remains peaceful today, its gardens bright in summer, and its rooms filled with gentle quiet. Yet some say that when dusk falls and the corridors darken, the house stirs. The footsteps begin, the past returns, and the headless man climbs the stairs again. Lacock Abbey. At the heart of the historic village of Lacock stands Lacock Abbey, a place of shifting identities. Once a medieval nunnery, later a grand country house, its rooms and corridors still carry the weight of every life that passed through them. Visitors often speak of a strange mixture of beauty and melancholy here, as though the building remembers more than it chooses to show. The most frequently witnessed spirit is the lady in white, often seen near the lake or drifting through the long galleries. Some say she is Rosamond Clifford, once the mistress of King Henry II, whose death was wrapped in rumor and resentment. Others believe she is Lady Ela, the noblewoman who founded the original abbey centuries ago. Another story claims she is Lady Sharrington, tied to the era when the abbey was transformed into a home. Whoever she is always described the same way: silent, pale, and impossibly sad. Those who see her say she moves slowly, her gown trailing behind her, as though walking a path she has walked 1,000 times before. If followed, she simply fades, like mist retreating from sunlight. Inside the house, another presence is far more startling. Witnesses have reported a small hunchbacked figure, dressed in dark, simple clothing, scurrying through the upstairs rooms. He moves quickly, almost furtively, and disappears around corners that lead to nowhere. No name is attached to him. No history explains him. Yet those who have seen him describe the encounter with unmistakable clarity. He appears, he darts away, and the hallway falls silent. There are other whispers too, a faint scent of old perfume in the lower rooms, the sound of quiet weeping near the staircase, footsteps in corridors where no one walks. The Abbey does not shout its hauntings, it breathes them. Lacock Abbey remains a place of film sets, visitors' gardens, and history. Yet after closing time, when the last footsteps have faded and the evening settles like a veil, the Abbey seems to exhale, and the past begins its slow walk through the halls again. Sign of the Angel. In the center of the quiet village of Lacock stands Sign of the Angel, a timber-framed inn with low ceilings, warm firelight, and rooms that seem shaped by the centuries. It is the kind of place where time feels slower, where footsteps echo gently on old boards, and where the past settles comfortably beside the present. Yet those who have stayed here speak of moments when the inn seems to remember more actively than one might expect. The spirit most often encountered is an elderly woman believed to be a former owner from the early 20th century. Her presence is gentle, almost watchful. Guests describe glimpsing her in the downstairs rooms, usually at quiet hours when conversation has faded and the inn feels still. She is seen moving with calm purpose, her expression soft, as though ensuring everything remains in order. She is not known to speak nor to linger long. Instead, her appearances feel like small check-ins, as if she continues to run the inn as she always did, stepping through the rooms she once tended with steady hands. When the building is silent at night, soft footsteps are sometimes heard along the upstairs corridor. Not hurried, not heavy, simply the measured tread of someone who knows the route well. On more than one occasion, a door latch has lifted gently, as though a hand pressed against it, yet no one stood beyond. Some guests mention the sensation of being watched kindly, particularly in the older bedrooms. Not a cold presence, nor an unsettling one, but something close to caretaking, as though someone is making sure they rest. But there are also quieter, stranger signs. A chair pulled neatly away from a table when no one has touched it. A cushion smoothed. A quilt straightened. Small acts of tidiness repeated with familiar precision. The inn itself feels warm, safe, deeply lived in. Nothing about the haunting here is dramatic or frightening. Instead, it feels like devotion that did not end. A keeper who loved the place too deeply to let it go. At Sign of the Angel, the past has not returned to trouble the living. It has simply stayed to watch over them. The Manor House Hotel, in the postcard-perfect village of Combe, where stone cottages lean towards quiet lanes and the river runs slow beneath ancient bridges, stands the Manor House Hotel. Surrounded by green lawns and whispering trees, the building looks serene, almost timeless. Yet the stillness carries a weight, the sense that not everyone who walked these rooms has truly departed. The hotel's most enduring legend is the Grey Lady. She is said to be tied not to the hotel as it stands now, but to the Norman castle that once occupied the site. Little remains of that fortress, but earthworks and memory, yet her presence endures with unsettling clarity. Witnesses describe her as a woman in a pale grey gown, her figure soft-edged, almost hazed, as though seen through mist. She is most often encountered near the grand staircase, standing in silence, her head slightly bowed. She does not look at those who see her. She simply exists, as if caught between here and somewhere unreachable. Guests walking the corridors late at night have spoken of a sudden coldness, a chill that rises not from drafts, but from the very air. In some rooms, there is the sensation of someone standing nearby, just out of sight, watching with quiet sorrow rather than malice. There are stories of footsteps heard crossing empty hallways, steady and deliberate, only to cease the moment a door is opened. A housekeeper once described entering a room to find the curtains drawn back, though they had been firmly closed minutes earlier. The room was otherwise untouched, but the air felt as though someone had just stepped away. The Grey Lady does not disturb. She does not speak. She does not rage. Her presence feels like a memory, repeating itself, a long echo of grief tied to a life and a loss no record now clearly explains. Some say she is searching for someone. Others say she is simply remembering. The Manor House Hotel remains a place of beauty, comfort, and quiet romance. Yet when the evening grows still and moonlight settles across the grounds, there are moments when the past feels painfully close, and the Grey Lady walks again. If these stories stayed with you, subscribe and share your thoughts below. Your voice helps this journey continue. There are many more haunted places waiting, and we will visit them together.